Maybe we'll keep the door open for a moment.
Yeah.
We are recording already.
Okay, wonderful. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for coming today. Our July 10th meeting of the Citizens Oversight Board is now in session. I would like to take the opportunity to thank our guests who are here from the Sheriff's Office, from the Department of Safety, from the City Attorney's Office. Thank you all. You are a very special guest today. We also have some public guests here from
Denver Justice Project.
Denver Justice Project. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we are recording this for those that are unable to attend, but there will not be virtual participation today. All right. I do have some announcements to make before we begin. We have still 3 vacancies on the board, despite the recent appointment of our board member, David Boyd. We have vacancies that are 2 mayoral vacancies and 1 joint mayoral council. And we have put in the request to the mayor to please fill those appointments as soon as possible so that we can get to full capacity on the board as soon as possible. Since we do not currently have quorum, we will defer the minute approval for a later time if we reach a quorum at a different point in the meeting. All right. I would like to also thank our board administrator, William Fenton, for all of the logistical support and all of the other details to get this meeting together. So thank you, Will.
Thank you.
I do have some updates before we begin. Our colleague, Tamisha Watkins, was laid to rest on June 22nd in Huntsville, Alabama. She passed in May. And I'm circulating a card for anyone that's wishing to sign it so that we can send to the family. Obviously, the family who lives in Alabama did not have an opportunity to interact with us, but it is our desire that they know that we are thinking of them and wish them much comfort. So if you'd like to sign, or can you use your pen? Sign.
Sure.
All right, thanks. Another information sharing is that we met with the mayor's team, Tim Hoffman, Dominic Moreno, and Evan Dreyer on June 22nd. As just previously indicated, we emphasized the concern that we have that the vacancies have been outstanding for a number of years now, and we're still trying to get those vacancies filled. We also stressed to the mayor, the representatives of the mayor, that a pattern seems to have arisen of not providing information to the OIM as mandated by the ordinance, and also the changes to the police and sheriff policies with little or no consultation with OIM. And so we hope to hear back about a request to meet with the mayor in the near future. We also had a recent meeting with the executive director, myself, and the Office of Independent Monitor, Liz Pettis-Castle. We met with Sheriff Diggins, who was there, and also the director, Gardner, on July 8th, this past Wednesday. And I am pleased to tell you that we had a very productive conversation. And we are committed to ongoing discussions about some of the concerns that we have and the concerns that were shared by the Director of Safety and the Sheriff. So hope to be able to now in the future talk in more details. This was an initial conversation, and happy to report there was no yelling.
There's never yelling with us.
Well, Okay. I'm also very happy to report that I received word from Executive Director Gardner directly that DPD is not moving forward at this time with any changes to the use of force policy as it relates to tasers. Therefore, the use of force policy remains the same. Although they are upgrading the taser device itself and implementing that, the policy stays as it was. Any future changes to the use of force policy, according to Director Gardner, will be made after working with the Office of Independent Monitor. And the Office of Independent Monitor is now will review any policy language that's submitted and will report back to the COB as to any concerns. So that is very good news. We are very happy about that. As regards to the Executive Director Directive 2026-001, the COB did issue a community sign-on letter to the Executive Director yesterday, or this was Wednesday, on which 6 partner organizations also joined in. Denver Justice Project, thank you, Women Uprising, Together Colorado, TOCA, ACLU, and Healing Warriors all joined that letter. And the letter asked for the suspension of the directive and a return to the process required by the OIM Oversight Ordinance. Since its implementation on May 27th, it is our observation that it has caused quite a great deal of confusion and chaos with the Office of Independent Monitor's ability to monitor these complaints, since no infrastructure had been discussed previously prior to the implementation, and nor was there any agreement, in order for the OIM to handle these this new situation. So we certainly urge for that discussion to happen as soon as possible so that both parties, meaning the Sheriff's Department and also the OIM, can function well in their respective roles. All right. I want to just very quickly go through 2 events that are happening that the community needs to know about. The Community Forum on Police Accountability on July 15th at the Blossom House, 3300 West Nevada Place at 5:30 p.m. We have sent out flyers to promote the event and on social media, and we appreciate it. The board can also help us in both attending the meeting and also sharing with the community so that we can have good attendance. We will be addressing the current state of EBD, the education-based development policy that was put into effect in, I think it was late April or early May, and the directive that I just mentioned, which addresses changes to the sheriff's discipline process. Although our flyer did indicate the taser policy was going to be discussed, with this recent development, we'll probably devote our time to going more in depth on those other 2 issues. And then finally, our next meeting will be on July 24th, where our Executive Director of Safety, Al Gardner, will be our guest. And so we welcome the community's participation on that. We do afford some time at the beginning of this meeting for public comment. We provide time for the community to ask questions or make comments. I see that we have a few other individuals that are here. And so if any of the community would like to ask a question or make a comment, please raise your hand and I will acknowledge you. But be aware that you have 3 minutes to share your comments or ask a question so that we can afford time for everyone who wants to do. Yes, sir. And could you give me your name, please?
My name is Joshua James Bull. Did you want to say?
I did. Madam Chair, thank you. I just wanted to add on the taser policy. The Denver Sheriff's Department also utilizes the tasers and will be following the same process that the police department does when it comes to the rollout of any changes regarding taser.
That's good to know. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I missed your name.
My name is Joshua James Bull. I'm a security guard with Twin Cities Security, licensed in Denver. I'm here in regards to an event that has happened on, I believe, this last Tuesday. Not exactly sure, but it was at 5:30 to about 5:50. And I was waiting outside in a public area to go to work. This is not the first time it has happened in Denver. However, it's the first time I know the district. It's District 2. A security guard for the property that was next to the sidewalk I was on came out and informed me that she had called the cops on me for being on her property. So I gave a call to first her dispatch, which was closed because they probably weren't in the office. So then I gave a call to the non-emergency line in Denver to inform them of the situation and that I was not a threat of any kind. They took my information down and informed me that they couldn't cancel the call. At the time, I wasn't sure, but I didn't know. But she was going to call the police department that I had a firearm. And recently, someone that I know was shot in Denver, and this struck a chord with me, thinking that while I was just waiting for work, that my life could be in danger. And sure enough, when the police department arrived, even though they already had my statement, they detained me first thing, took my camera, and stopped its recording. That this leads me to believe that they were intending to do devious things. But in the end, they found no such reason to believe that I had a weapon. But my rights had already been stripped at that point off of hearsay of some security guard. I'm here to make a complaint on that situation. It's not the first time it's happened. All of these events have been on recording. So, yeah, that's my complaint.
Thank you very much for coming. What I would like to have us do is we will provide you with information on making this complaint formally through our online form. And then the Office of Independent Monitor will then monitor this complaint. Ms. Bettis Castle is here from the Office of Independent Monitor, and she can speak to that.
If you're, good morning, and I'm sorry that happened to you. If your complaint is against the officers that showed, then that is a complaint that gets filed with the OIM. If it is in regards to the security officers, we have no jurisdiction over the security officers. I don't know where that would go. I can certainly try and find out. I imagine it would go to the security department for the city of Denver. But I can certainly take your name and try and find out and get that information to you.
Yes, go ahead.
I believe I've already filed online with the OIM.
Oh, okay.
However, I left the information as bare minimum as possible because I prefer to speak to somebody about the situation in person. There's a lot to speak about, and I only have 3 minutes here.
That's right. Okay. I appreciate that. Liz, can we follow up with the gentleman? Wonderful. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you for making us aware that this has happened, and that's what we're here for. Thank you. Is there any other person from the public which would like to make a comment? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, hi, my name is Reagan Benson, and I'm regularly mostly involved in understanding the dynamics of this board and all these operations. Lots of new faces here today. I don't know who's who. I'm sorry, I missed introductions. We were dealing with another police matter wherein somebody had called the police on my friend here again. So I think it's really important that we note that false reporting to law enforcement is a crime. And that is the reason me and my friend are here today. And I think it should be noted that we do have a serious issue here in Denver with the police department, specifically the Denver Police Department, showing up and open firing on people. And that is a very real threat to freedom in this country. And I am glad that my friend here is sitting next to me this time. There could be a next time that he's not. We're not taking things very serious. And the other things we're not taking very serious are how many people are dying in the jail. And jails everywhere. When I go into this jail all the time here in Denver, based on false accusations that I've victimized a cop again, I never get my meds. This is a death sentence for some people, and it will be a death sentence for me if we cannot correct this problem. So I have asked that we go to mediation to resolve these life and death situations. And I expect to use this mediation process to get an agreement in writing that this is going to stop in the sheriff's department, within all the jails. The people have to wait until the sheriff's department decides that they're going to get people's medication. And the fact that this city wants to continue to put me in jail tells me that they are interested in a death sentence for me. So it is a very real concern, and it needs to get addressed. And I'm sad to know that I was not chosen as a mayor's appointee to this board. I've waited a long time for that appointment. I thought I could be very helpful in conversation. And it turns out that the mayor decided to wait. I don't know. I think I've been waiting for like 9 months or something. He's never made an appointment to the COB board or used his appointments. I'm assuming he has now. I don't know. I need to go back and figure out who's who and what's what. But that's my reasoning here today. And thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Ms. Benson. Thank you. All right. Anyone else that wants to give them a comment? Okay, very good. Thank you. And if you want after our meeting, I can talk with you. We will be having executive session in which you won't be able to participate, but if you wanted to wait, we can chat. Thank you. All right. Now our special guest is Sheriff Elias Diggins, and we welcome you, sir, for coming and talking with us about a number of questions that we have about certainly the newest development on the directive, and also some other more long-standing questions that we've had that we just needed to follow up on. Just for everyone's purpose, we did send questions to the sheriff for him to prepare some information if there were statistics or analysis that needed to be done, and so we appreciate that. So I will just go ahead and start, and I know that you have something that you're going to present to us.
Yes, ma'am.
And is that in response to the questions, or is this in addition
I
to?
think it will explain some of the questions, so if we can do it before and then we can get to the questions, I think that'll be better.
Okay, well, what is the presentation on?
It's on the specifics in the directive.
In the directive?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that should answer some of these questions?
I actually have answers to all of the questions, but it may help with context for what we have been doing. And I know there are questions from the board and the monitor about the way that it was rolled out and the why. And I think that will help to explain it along with my responses.
How long is the presentation?
I can do it in 10 minutes.
Can we do it in 6?
I will give it my best shot.
Okay, yes, because we want to afford the opportunity to ask questions. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Okay, right. As, I know you tell me when, okay, just, yes, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity to share this information. That we wanted to roll out the directive was when we did the reform.
Sheriff, can
Yes,
you
ma'am.
move that a little bit closer? I'm having a difficult time reading it,
Sure.
and I'm pretty sure it's not going to be visible on our screen here. So yes, if you could provide the information virtually, and then we'll attach it to the, if we can, to the recording.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay. The rationale for returning the ability for sergeants and captains to address what we believe is low-level issues is when we did the reform, we took that ability of those supervisors away. And so for us, it was, how do we address a significant issue in the sheriff department, which is feeling that supervisors can't manage the people whom they're called to lead. All of the supervisors will be utilizing Workday, which is the personnel system for those coaching and counseling sessions. The other important factor is we are keeping track of every single incident that happens. And if someone has 3 incidents, then it's going to trigger 3 or more incidents. It's going to trigger an internal investigation automatically. It doesn't matter if that happens in 3 weeks, 3 months, 1 year, 3 years. It's automatic. I think the other important thing that we have been pointing out is there are only 19 issues that the supervisors are able to address out of the 178 that we consider to be infractions, which is 11%. So for us, it was how do we re-empower supervisors the way that I used to be empowered when I was a sergeant 26 years ago. So these are the issues. Late reporting is pretty self-explanatory. So I don't want to go into that. Records errors. We book 23,000 people per year through our system. All of those files are paper records. Some of you may have been on a tour of the jail. They're paper records. And so for us, the deputies that work long hours, there may be a human error where they forget to sign a slip or something along those lines. In those instances, the supervisors can address those problems. If something happens to the person, 2 minutes left?
No, in.
Okay, thank you.
Just get up fast.
All right. If something happens to a person, then that's off the table. It automatically goes to internal affairs. And let me tell you all, when we issued the directive, it was meant for internal consumption, not public consumption. So I want to tell everyone, harm for us means that a person believes or there is actual harm to them, that they've been negatively impacted by either the action or inaction of a Denver deputy sheriff. That's what harm is. And we're happy that we've gotten that feedback from the public. We're willing to share that definition with folks. But that's what it means when you see harm. I'll go down to missed rounds. This is only after the supervisors have done a review of the rounds that they're required to do each week. If the deputy has missed 2 rounds in their pod and nothing happened, no person in custody was harmed, there was no incident. If they missed 2, we want to give a little grace to the deputies and have the supervisors address it. Here's why. Those deputies are working 14 and 16 hours a day. If something happens, we want to give them time to explain why they missed the round, but also explain to them the importance of doing those rounds because it saves lives. We're not giving them a free pass. It will be documented. We're going to make sure that we're holding people accountable. Failure to secure doors, same thing. We had a case about 2 months ago where a deputy left a pod door open, person in custody walked across the hallway to the medical unit. The deputy ran and got that person, took them back. That person was under investigation for 18 months because we have so many cases in the pipeline. A supervisor could have talked to them. This is a deputy that has no other discipline. We think a better use of the supervisor's time is to address those low-level issues. If something happened, then that deputy would have automatically had an internal affairs case open. Thank you. Weapons in a secure area. When I go to work every single day, I'm required to have my weapon on my person. Every single deputy sheriff is required to do that. When you go to what we call the secure perimeter, for those of you who have been on a tour, you'll remember we have to go and lock our weapons up. If you walk past that, and somebody says you have your weapon on because everybody's always looking and you got to go back and lock it up, then that's what that is. This is never that you laid your pistol on the ground, that somebody got a hold of it, anything like that, automatic case. But if you forget to lock up, a supervisor can address it rather than an 18-month case. Cell phone in a secure area, same thing. If you're not supposed to have a cell phone inside the jail, we're going to make sure that you understand we take this very seriously. Uniform violations, if I forget my badge, if I forget my stars, the supervisor is going to tell them, you got to make sure you come dressed every day because we may need to send you out to the public. You have to have your uniform on. Supervisors can address that. Same thing with safeguarding department equipment, radio, or anything else that is issued to me by the department. If I lay that on the table and I walk away, a supervisor can address that rather than it being a case. Monitoring radio, if I'm sitting in a pod and the supervisor's trying to get hold of me and I'm not listening to the radio, the supervisor has to go to the pod to talk to you. That's monitoring the radio. You have to pay attention because something could be going on. Unauthorized service of process. You all know that we do process serving in the community, serving writs, or not writs, but civil papers. If you, as a deputy sheriff, are approached by a family member or somebody in the public, and they know that you're a deputy sheriff, and they say, can you serve this to somebody for me? And you don't send them through a formal process, that's what that is. Soliciting business, same thing. As a deputy sheriff, you cannot solicit business unless you come through the department. Next.
Yeah, 6 minutes.
Okay, all right. And I'll just ask, are there any other questions about this? And let me say on this one, we're getting ready to work with the independent monitor to make sure that we are in compliance with the ordinance and the expectations that we all have. So we're going to readdress this last one. So that is one of the ones that we absolutely want to put on the table for discussion with Liz.
And Sheriff, can we talk about how it's only like 90 infractions out of what, 100? Yeah, they did mention that already. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
So,
Thank you.
okay.
Yes,
All right.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll jump right into the questions, Madam Chair.
Yeah, let's talk about those.
Okay.
And let me say that we did not necessarily put this in order of priority.
Sure.
So I am going to actually jump into question number 2.
Oh,
So Executive Directive 2026-001 references an extensive internal review of the sheriff's disciplinary processes. Extensive means long-term or significant numbers of people. Extensive has a really robust connotation. So we want to hear from you as to the analysis that was done, the data that was used, the reports that you may have utilized for this decision to immediately jump into, those are my words, into this conclusion that you needed to do this immediate implementation of this change. So please share that with us.
yes, ma'am. Thank you. Let me first begin by saying that my analysis, and I can't speak for Director Gardner or his staff for their portion of that analysis, because this was done by a number of folks. My analysis was based on my experience as a 32-year veteran of the Denver Sheriff's Department. I've served at every rank in our agency, including as the sheriff for 6 years. In that time, I not only was an investigator in internal affairs for 2 years as a sergeant, but as a major, division chief, and now as the sheriff, I've been involved in and have overseen literally hundreds of disciplinary cases. I'm also a nationally recognized certified corrections executive. I'm a commissioner for accreditation with the American Correctional Association and a past president of the American Jail Association. I also have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Metropolitan State University of Denver and a master of public administration degree from the University of Colorado, Denver. I've also testified in countless disciplinary hearings at both the local and federal level, to include serving as a 30B6 witness in a federal case. The Executive Director of Safety's office and I relied upon disciplinary trends from recent years, feedback from our workforce, and feedback from management staff. These trends were depicted both on external and internal dashboards, as well as the OIM's annual report. For example, the fact that 56% of sworn deputy sheriffs currently had an open disciplinary case, and the average case taking up to 18 months to investigate and close, are both indicative of a system that is not timely and or effective. Many of these cases are for minor issues and allegations, but end up taking extensive resources and create a substantial impact on the morale of those impacted ultimately contributing to high attrition, extensive overtime, and other challenges. This also impacts the ability to timely investigate and address more serious disciplinary allegations. There are voluminous reports that were utilized to form these conclusions regarding this change. And I'll stand for questions.
Fine. So you said that one of the reports was from OIM, but the OIM also indicates that there are other factors that are leading to attrition, not just the possible discipline case lasting a number of months, et cetera. So were there other kinds of reports that you utilized?
We talked to our staff, and I'll tell you, I speak to deputy sheriff members all the time. We have what I would refer to as an eggshell culture in the Denver Sheriff's Department, meaning deputy sheriff members at all ranks feel like they're walking on eggshells, and at any moment they feel like they could catch a case. And as we begin to look at why people are leaving, in addition to making sure that we're addressing pay, in addition to making sure we're providing lots of opportunities for them to do different things, as we have focused on wellness in the past couple of years, one of the things that we had not changed was the way that discipline gets started. And it is absolutely one of the reasons, just one, it's not all of them, that people have said that they leave the Denver Sheriff's Department. And as you all know, we're currently at 65% staffing. I know there's a question regarding that, so I'll wait, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
But it absolutely is one of the most important factors for us to try to address and resolve as we look to fix the problem that we have that's been plaguing us now for a number of years.
Would any of the other board members like to?
Yeah, so I'm trying to understand what you said about the extensive internal review. What you're saying is that the EVOS did an extensive review that was not shared with you, or that you each individually did extensive reviews, or that it was a compilation of various reviews, or what data informed this decision? And is it data that we can be provided with?
Thank you, Julia. It's the last one. There's a compilation of data that folks looked at to come to these conclusions. I'll tell you, I've been looking at this for quite some time. Since I've been the sheriff, it's been something that has been circling over my head. How do we fix this problem? Because I've been hearing about it for years from our employee groups, from people that have left our agency. And so I've been looking at data for quite some time. And so the executive director's office has folks that are pretty new. But when they hit the ground and they begin to dig into the data and begin to unpack what's going on, they were flabbergasted, I think is probably a good word, at the system that we have, how bogged down it is. And they began to make recommendations about how they thought that we could fix things.
Couple of other follow-up questions. What proportion of staff do you have that do exit interviews upon their departure?
We open it up to everyone, but it's absolutely voluntary, and I can get that information for you.
Okay, and when you do those exit interviews, a major cause of people's departure is that they're subject to discipline?
It's a part of it. They also talk about the toxic culture that we have. I believe, based on my experience, my vast experience in going from jails from border to border and coast to coast, that part of that toxic culture is the way that we do discipline. I've never seen a sheriff department anywhere in America that has 56% of their staff under investigation. No police department, no one has that. And so the toxic culture comes from the fact that supervisors are handcuffed in addressing very minor issues, because a sergeant is afraid if they don't put a case on a deputy, that they're going to catch a case too. And so rather than you coming in late and the sergeant pulling you to the side and talking to you, he said, sorry, you're late. Got to send this across the street. That's the toxicity that does not breed trust. And as we all know, First thing that you have to have in any relationship, especially in immediate supervisor and employee relationship, is you have to be able to build trust. Well, how can I trust you when I feel like everything that I do, every single small mistake that I make, you're going to send it to internal affairs? So for us, you see toxic culture, you see people talking about catching cases, you see other things. Like people want to be post-certified. People say, I can go to another department and be paid the same wages. You see a vast amount of responses for the reasons that people leave, but that absolutely is one. And in this packet, I brought letters from all 5 of our employee groups, which I think will be very telling when you all are able to read them.
I have a follow-up question, which is what are staffing levels at facilities like yours across the country?
It depends. I'll tell you, throughout the state of Colorado, there is no sheriff's department that has a jail or a system that has staffing as low as ours. In fact, most of them are at their authorized strength. We are in the minority. In other places of the country where they're dealing with very low pay, like Alabama, they're competing with Walmart because they only pay their deputies $18 an hour. But here in Colorado, you will not find any sheriff's department that has staffing levels like ours.
And with the other sheriff's departments, how many of them require mandatory overtime of all their deputies on a daily, weekly basis?
Those that are at low staffing, they have to. There is no way that you can keep the jail open. I know that, I believe VOC, because their staffing levels are low, they require mandatory overtime. And so it's a tool that is utilized throughout the nation to ensure that facilities are staffed because they have to be staffed 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Right. And you don't think that a major cause of attrition and retention is the mandatory overtime required in a very difficult job?
Oh, yeah. I think that burnout comes because we can't get past 65%. We've been fluctuating over the past couple of years. In 2021, we dropped down to about 58%. But over the past few years, changed the pay, we began to work on wellness. We're getting more people through the front door. The problem is we're not able to keep them. And so we're not able to get past that 65%. But we also have seen over the past 2 years, a significant number of deputy sheriffs who became eligible for retirement. So we had a huge wave in 24 and 25. We believe that with these changes, 26 and 27, that we'll begin to see significant gains with members staying, and the overtime will become lessened as our numbers go up. This is almost like history repeating itself. When I came on in 1994, between 1992 and 1996, there were over 300 something deputies that were hired because the sheriff's department was in the same place when it comes to staffing. By the time we got to 1996 and we got to full staffing, the overtime began to go away. So I know what the deputies are going through when it comes to having to work that overtime, which is why it's so important for us to fix the problem.
And so when did the staffing levels start to decline over time?
Right after George Floyd,
Okay.
we began to see a mass exodus in law enforcement across the nation.
So the disciplinary processes and oversight has been in place for 20 years, and the use of AIU has been in place for much longer, right? But what we're saying is that a majority of the attrition now is due to concerns about disciplinary process on a process that's been in place for more than 2 decades. And so I'm just sort of confused on like the attribution that we're making here for something that seems like a very minor part of a very difficult job.
I appreciate that. Let me provide a little bit of clarification. The reform happened from 2016 to 2018. That's when the authority was taken away from the supervisors to be able to address those very minor issues. So going into 2019 and 2020, we began to hear these concerns about supervisors not being able to address these problems. Before that, 20 years ago, sergeants were able to address minor issues, but in the reform, that was taken away. And the ability for the Denver Sheriff's Department to conduct its own investigations was also moved to the Director of Safety's office during the reform. And that's when the PID was stood up. If you look at, and I know.
For those that don't know what PID
Oh,
means.
I'm so sorry. Like public integrity division has
Thank you.
two parts. It has the administrative investigations unit and it has the conduct review office. That is the public integrity division, which reports directly to the Department of Safety. There are no uniformed staff members that are part of the PID whatsoever. One of the recommendations from Hillard Hines, who was the company brought in to do the reform, as well as OIR, that's an acronym, but I don't know what it stands for, was that there be a marriage between civilian staff and uniformed staff if we were to create a new body to do investigations. That did not happen. When Troy Riggs was the director of safety and Eric Williams was the deputy director of safety, they moved it. They didn't bring any uniformed staff members with them whatsoever. So there has been a deficit of subject matter expertise in that process for quite some time because there's nobody who has walked the walk or walked a mile in our shoes. And so as we begin to fix these challenges, it's one of the things that we've been talking about as well. So it's not 20 years that this has existed. I would say 2019, 2020, and then there was a lot going on.
And then
Right.
2020, when George Floyd
That's correct.
happened.
Can you say a little bit about why those reforms were put in place in the first place?
Absolutely. We were in a very different place than we are today as an agency. I call it the PATF culture was brought into the downtown detention center. There was unnecessary uses of force. We were not an agency that prioritized mental health the way that we should and addressing people who have mental health conditions. There were two significant uses of forces, which resulted in deaths. The first was Marvin Booker. There was an incident with another gentleman, and then there was Michael Marshall. And the reform looked top to bottom to the Denver Sheriff Department, provided over 400 recommendations. And we agreed with, I believe, 95% of those recommendations and implemented them. And it gave us the ability to be the department that we are today with more resources, with a clearer direction on where you should be going. And I was actually responsible when I was a division chief because after I was no longer the interim sheriff, I was assigned to implement the reforms. I was responsible for tracking and helping to guide the implementation of every single one of those reforms.
So the culture lacked accountability that resulted in danger to the people who were in your custody, right?
There
And
was some,
so those changes were consequential in order to avoid harm.
correct.
And where we are today is thinking about moving back to changes because we're concerned about the level of accountability. And in exchange, we are willing to risk harm to those in custody.
I would disagree with that, respectfully disagree with that, and I'll tell you why. I take my job very, very seriously. The day that I graduated from the Denver Sheriff's Academy, my father was in the Colorado Department of Corrections. And I've had numerous family members that have come through the jail that I'm the sheriff of. In fact, when I was a kid, I used to go see my dad in the very jail that I'm now the sheriff of. When I go back into the community that raised Montbello and the east side of Denver, I have to answer to the folks who put their trust in me to run this agency. Every decision that I make is based on the fact that I look at the people that are in custody same way that my family members, because I know there's somebody at home that loves them. I would not do anything to place them in harm. I also make those decisions based on the fact that over the past 32 years, I've gained significant expertise in seeing best practices as a not just a large jail administrator, but an instructor for the Department of Justice, National Institute of Corrections, as a commissioner for the American Correctional Association, as a past president of the American Jail Association. I'm nationally known by my peers. In fact, next week, and I'd love for you all to be participants in this, I've been invited to be a national panelist on a webinar for improving conditions of confinement for women who are in custody, because when I became the president of the American Jail Association, I launched an effort titled Gender Equity in Jails Across America, which the Department of Justice adopted and the large jail network started as well. So I say all that, and I could talk about all the things that I've done for many, many years. I do not believe that any decision that I made is going to cause harm to the people in custody. If you remember, over the past 6 years since I've been the sheriff, we created a medicated assisted treatment unit for people who have addictions. We created a housing unit for military veterans because we realized that they need special care before they leave our custody. We've done gender responsive and trauma informed care for the women that are in custody. We created a contact visit room that has a room that folks in custody can change out to civilian clothing so their children would never have to see them in those clothes, because I remember the feeling of seeing my dad in that jail uniform, and it's never left my head. We have done tremendous things that are groundbreaking across our industry. And so I would never do anything that's going to cause harm to the people in custody. I would never make a decision like that, ever. We do not believe that the very minor issues that we've placed in the directive are going to cause harm to people.
The whole policy is contingent on the word harm, whether harm has occurred or not.
Mhm.
And so that is where I think the confusion, for me at least, resides. That we have a vague definition of a word that's pretty critical in your care and in your context. And, you know, waiting for harm to occur is not a good policy. And that is, I think, at least my concern. I'll say too, Sheriff, you know, I'm not questioning on whether you're qualified to be the sheriff. And you and I have agreed on a lot of policy changes over time, but this is not one of them.
Well, I appreciate that. Can I just briefly respond? Julia, I appreciate that you say that. I think we probably can do a better job about explaining how we train our staff to recognize harm and what our definition is. The directive was not meant for public consumption. It's a directive to our staff. And when they go through a 4-month academy, they are taught what they're required to write reports on based on our definition of harm, which I talked about earlier. If you do anything that a person perceives or they're actually negatively impacted by either your action or inaction, you have caused them harm. And so for us, our staff knows, I apologize that that definition wasn't clear to you all, but I would love to share that not just with you, but with the public as well.
But Chair, okay, I'm going to follow up with my colleague here. That is one that I had particular concern about, was this issue of if harm occurs. Because in no other, there's very few instances in which our laws are indicating that harm has to occur in order for us to obey the law. So for example, a very minor situation. I don't stop at a stop sign and I just go, well, nobody's around, so I don't need to stop. I don't need to obey the red light. Nobody's around. I don't see anybody. It's not going to harm anybody. I'm still required to stop.
Yes.
I'm still required to obey the red light. So it's an interesting dichotomy that you're presenting here, that only if an incident or an actual harm occurs. And I think we're having the issue that the dog who bites someone and severely harms someone, the person who owns the dog said, that dog was so friendly, no, how could it happen? The dog bites. That dog bit and harmed someone. Yes, the harm happened, but you didn't have him on the leash to keep him from harming somebody. So in this instance, we have to wait for that first incident of harm, physical or emotional or whatever that is being described as. I understand that you're saying that this was an internal document and it wasn't necessarily for the community to see, but now in the spirit of transparency, we're seeing it and we're having concerns. The three areas that I'm most concerned about is the missing rounds, the weapons, and the cell phone. Now, there are other concerns with others, but I think those are the priority because missing rounds really can lead to some problems. And then the weapons in a secured area, I would assume that anytime a weapon is in a secure area, there's a problem. And so let's not have it occur at all. And that should be perhaps something that should rise to the level of a discipline. And I never heard of a situation where a supervisor couldn't talk to their employee and emphasizing the importance of these rules being followed, even with discipline. I was in charge of an office at the University of Denver where managers would sometimes say, well, you know, what can I do? And I said, you can always talk to your employee. That's not stopped by the fact that, you know, we're going to go through this investigation. So I'm not sure. I guess I would need to find out more about why supervisors are such in fear, if you will, that they can't talk to their employee. And then the third area was the cell phone. If people are distracted by something that they're either talking to someone or they're watching some program, I guess because right now we're in the World Cup series, you know, that would be very tempting to be watching something like that. So I'm just saying those are three areas where I would feel if you had talked to us, we would have been able to say, whoa, hold up. Is this really appropriate for us to not be putting it through a discipline process? Okay.
I would add to your concerns, Chair, in that any violation of the law by folks who are sworn to uphold the law is curious in its facts and description. And the use of departmental insignia can only be thought of as ways to bribe or intimidate folks. And I cannot imagine a circumstance where it would be appropriate outside of work to use a city symbol or the sheriff's symbol as part of your activities, particularly in the case where you all engage in evictions and, you know, property disputes and things like that. And so I would appreciate understanding why that would ever be okay and how that would ever be a minor infraction.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Julia. Madam Chair, let me just say to you, we do consider these things to be violations of our policy still. It's just the way that they're going to be addressed is going to be a little bit different. It's not that they're not going to be held accountable. They're still going to be held accountable. It's just that for some of them, a supervisor is going to talk to them and coach and counsel them and document that in Workday. So they're never going to get a free pass. We're not saying that we're not going to address this with them. We absolutely are every single time. And if they continue to do it 3 times, then they're going to have an internal investigation. The harm part triggers an internal investigation automatically.
Right.
And so for us, it is how do we balance moving some of the low level infractions out of a very clogged pipeline to address or to give supervisors the ability to talk to the deputies. And I'll tell you what a supervisor will tell you, because I've heard this 1,000 times. I don't talk to a deputy once I open a case because I may get in trouble for just talking to them afterwards for perhaps interfering with an investigation.
I do understand that piece.
Yeah, we have
sure.
this culture that we've got to fix inside of our agency. The missing grounds is only after a review is done of their rounds at the end of the week. If something happened, a supervisor would have already been notified. If somebody has committed suicide, or somebody got beat up, or something else, that would have already been told to a supervisor and they would have already opened the case.
I
So
understand.
this is just, if I go back through your records, if Rufina Hernandez is a deputy sheriff, and I go back to last week, the last 7 days, and I look in your pod and I see you missed 2 rounds. I go back and I look Were there any incidents, any reports, any complaints, grievances? Nothing. Okay, we're finna come in. Let's talk. On July 10th, you missed 2 rounds. Tell me why. I missed 2 rounds because I just forgot. We don't do that. You make sure you do every round. You save lives by doing rounds. We're going to document that. That's what that means. The same thing with cell phones in the jail. This is not people are sitting and watching the World Cup on their phone and somebody gets beat up in their cell or somebody gets harmed. That's automatically a case. But if I look at the camera in the pod and I see you're on your phone and I go and look at that list, Johnson, come down to my office. We need to talk. And I'm gonna show you the video. I just saw you with your phone. Are you on the list? No. Why did you have your phone in here then? You don't get
And
to
the reason why you're calling them in is because something could happen while they're on the phone.
That's exactly right. And so for a supervisor to address that with them is going to hopefully fix the problem. If it doesn't, then you're going to get a case. A weapon in the jail means exactly what I said. If you walk past that threshold and you have your gun on, somebody's going to tell you, you need to go back and lock up. You have to report that. That's a requirement. If you don't, you could face discipline up to and including termination. This is not a deputy laid their gun somewhere. Somebody got a hold of their gun. This is nothing along those lines. That's going across the street to internal affairs. This is, you forgot.
You just walked in and you had the gun still with you.
That is
and you didn't lock it up.
That's correct. So I think as we talk, perhaps you can bring the concerns of the board, Rufina and Liz, when we have those private discussions. I think for the purposes of today, we could probably be here for the next 3 hours hashing out all of the
Oh,
challenges.
you didn't allot for 3 hours? I'm sorry.
Oh, man. In fact, I have to go to a community event in Green Valley Ranch. The Crowley Foundation has a program for boys. They asked me to come to the graduation today.
Okay.
For
Well,
young
then
men of color.
let's move on to the next question then.
Okay.
Larry, I wanted to give the opportunity to you if you had any questions regarding what we just were talking about.
No, I don't think so. I think it'd be interesting to see, after you all have this conversation, kind of see where we end up at.
Yeah, one of the issues that mostly is, I'll use my ranch analogy here, put a burr under my saddle, was the fact that this was a conversation that we wished we would have had before the directive was announced. We really would have preferred this conversation to have allowed us to understand your thinking about it, understand then why the immediacy of what you chose to do, and also then the categories that were being considered so that we would have input into, this one seems a bit odd, or this one is, I think we can live with this, or whatever the circumstance would have been. But it's the fact that now we're after the fact and responding to already a foregone decision. And now we're trying to put infrastructure into place to try and support and implement it well.
Madam Chair, if I may
Yes.
put a finer point on it, we would not have preferred it. It is required by the ordinance.
Okay, I appreciate that point. It is. So now, and we're, in the midst of all that. So I think where we are at is making it known as strongly as we can, as respectfully as we can, that we do not want to see this pattern continue. It raises the level of resistance to a much higher level than would have been necessary if we had had that conversation earlier, and not have to be responding each time to, well, why is this? And what do you mean by that? And why is it happening immediately as opposed to, let's say, in whatever the time frame is? So I appreciate the fact that you say you've been thinking about it a long time. We've been with you quarterly, and we hadn't heard about this. So we would appreciate now that we are here and we don't want to be here again. If that's if that's okay with our board.
Thank you,
I
Madam
guess
Chair. I'm sorry, go ahead, Alfredo.
Larry, yeah.
I'm sorry, Larry.
I guess the only thing I would add to that is in the Southwest forum that we had down at 1,000 South Low that you attended around EBD,
Mhm.
I think it was Karen who even asked, because you were in attendance, are you thinking about doing this? And it was a negative response. It was like, no, like just kind of looking to see what's going on. I support the chief, but I guess, to that point, now you're saying that you've been looking at this, there's been a lot of effort. Well, that wasn't very long ago. And the public response was no, not looking at doing anything.
Thank you for that, Larry. And I've been asked that and I heard a previous response regarding that. Let me just tell you that EBD and this directive are apples and oranges. Because the Denver police supervisors already have the ability to do what we put into place. EBD is about sending people back to training to be retrained. This is empowering our supervisors to be able to address low-level issues. That's the first thing. Second thing, I was genuinely there to support my friend, who I believe is the greatest chief of police in the state of Colorado, in an effort that he was trying to put into place, because he has the same heart for the people that I do. And I support Ron Thomas. I supported him then, and I support him today. So I was not deceiving anyone. I was not actually thinking about putting this into place at that time. I've been wanting to make changes, but this change came after that. If you remember, that was in the fall. I think Armando was still the director then. Al didn't come on until later. So it was different. I also would like to respond to your comment. I absolutely accept that, Rufina. I appreciate your perspective and the perspective of the board when it comes to wanting to be involved. I've been engaged with the COB since its inception because I, as a young captain, was allowed to sit in the room. They had the discussion. I remember when Paul Childs got killed, because people always have to remember I'm also black and blue. So when I went home at night and I talked to my mom, and I talked to my family, I had to explain to them what happened. So I've always believed in the purpose and the power of the COB and the OIM. I know Richard Rosenthal. I know Nick Mitchell. In fact, Nick Mitchell is a friend of mine, and I worked very well with him. And I had a good working relationship with Liz Castle. I want to say, I believe that your leadership is a refreshing start to us moving forward. And I look forward to working with you and Liz.
And the board and the community.
Let me say, the board as well. I'm not discounting anyone on this board. I will pick up the phone for any person on this board that calls me or that wants to come out to the jail. But what I'll tell you is it's become very difficult over the past couple of years to feel supported in the way that we were in the past. I always felt supported from Nita Gonzalez when she was on the board. I always felt supported by Pastor Burleson. I always felt supported by Rabbi Foster. I could go down the list. And those people held us accountable. Even when Al was the chair, we always held the highest regard for the board and felt that that was reciprocal. I think the past couple of years have been a significant challenge. So I hope that this week begins a new day for us to get back to where we should be and working together for the good of the people that we all serve. And
Exactly.
you have my absolute commitment in doing that. And I hope all of the board members have my number. I know Liz has my number. If you ever have any question, if you ever have any problem, please feel free to reach out to me.
So the expectation is, as my colleague said, is that you would follow the ordinance, and we keep hearing that we have a different viewpoint than does Department of Safety on that ordinance. And I don't understand why we have that discrepancy. It's plain language, shall. And so we're going to hear later on from the city attorney, because we've asked them for their response to our question. But if indeed it's not as plain language as we think, then we'll address that. But if it is the way that we perceive it, then that's what we expect.
Absolutely. We uphold the law, and I won't speak for Director Garden. I'll let him talk about his conversations with the city attorneys when he comes
Sure.
to see you on the 25th.
Absolutely.
I absolutely follow the law, and I also take orders and execute as well.
Now, do we still have time, your time for?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to go through some of
Okay,
them.
Please,
I think
let's
it's
go
great
ahead and
information.
proceed. We were talking about the staffing levels, so let's talk about that, the vacancy rates, the overtime usage, along with any notable trends. What is the situation?
We are currently at 65.42% operational strength and 60.07 adjusted operational strength.
What does that mean?
I was going to share with everyone what that means. So operational strength means the actual deputy sheriffs that we have on board. Adjusted operational strength takes out people who are not able to be deployed because of FMLA, because of military duty, because of something that we're not able to deploy them. So right now we're at 65.42 operational and 60.07 adjusted operational strength. You also asked about overtime. For the month of April, the average deputy worked 51.6 hours. The average sergeant worked 39.9 hours. For the month of May, the average deputy worked 45.2 hours. The average sergeant worked 43.4 hours. For the month of June, the average deputy worked 45.9 hours. The average sergeant worked 37.5 hours.
And what would normally, I assume the normal rate is 40 hours is what we would be hoping to get to.
Well, times, you have to multiply that times 4. So 120 hours per month. Is that 4? No, 160. If they actually work 41.32 hours.
That's the normal.
41.32 hours per week, plus the average number of hours for overtime. So if you divide 45.9 divided by 4, it's essentially 10 additional hours per month. They're required to work no less than 24 hours per month, which is 6 hours per week.
All right. Any questions about that? Please provide, I'm looking at question number 4. Please provide current information regarding recruitment efforts, including vacancies, hiring trends, application numbers, and any measurable improvements or continuing challenges.
Good. I actually brought our spreadsheet regarding recruitment. I'm not going to distribute these to the public because they have not been cleared by the city attorney's office for public consumption, but I will share them with the board and the members at this table that work for the city. So if you don't mind, please take one, pass it along. We'll start with the chart that has the graphs to the side. This is the number of candidates that we currently have in the pipeline. So there are a total of 119 candidates, yes, ma'am, that we have in the pipeline. You can see the breakdown of those candidates by race and ethnicity. We're very proud of the fact that the Denver Sheriff Department is the most diverse law enforcement agency in a 5-state region. And our candidate pool continues to represent that. We also have the highest percentage of women in uniform for law enforcement agencies as well. And you'll see our candidate pool also reflects that. Go to the next page that talks about post-conditional processing. Those 36 candidates mean those are people that have made it almost all the way through. Our next academy starts August 17th. So we look forward to hopefully having a full academy. The next academy after that, I believe, starts in December.
What is the full academy count?
It's about 30 recruits. Sometimes we may get over 30 and get 35. There's always a little bit of attrition when you begin an academy, some folks think they want to do this work until they start the academy. We currently have 22 recruits that are in our academy. We graduated 24 about 6 weeks ago. They just finished their field training officer program and hit the floor this past Sunday. So recruiting is going very well. Our recruiters are out everywhere. I believe last year they attended over 200 events looking for good candidates to join our agency.
So you were saying that you had affected pay. What has been the changes that you've made in that?
In our last collective bargaining contract, deputy sheriffs received 4%. The contract before that was a historical raise for the Denver Sheriff's Department. In fact, it was talked about in the media where the percentage went up 12% over that contract period. So it was a significant raise for deputy sheriffs. And we believe that was one of the key factors in us increasing the number of recruits that we got at the academy. Prior to us raising the pay, we were seeing single digit academies. Once we raised that pay, that number doubled and tripled. And we began to also be very strategic about recruiting from people who are doing this work. I told our team to hang a sign on the east side of the county jail that points at the Department of Corrections, and it worked. We got a lot of recruits from the folks that work over there.
I see. Okay, because your pay is better
Absolutely.
and the benefits?
The benefits and these folks already know the work, and so they come on board, they hit the ground running. We do an exhaustive background check on them to make sure that they're ready to do it, and a lot of them do very well when they come to the Denver Sheriff's Department.
All right, moving on.
Yes, ma'am.
Unless anybody has a question? What evidence or data supports the conclusion that the recent disciplinary process change will improve recruitment and retention? And what we're wanting to see is what data are you using? What evidence do you have that does indeed? Do you want these back?
Only if folks don't want to take.
No, I'll take them.
Okay.
I always take information.
Madam Chair, please take one and pass them around. The evidence that supports the conclusion is when you read through these letters, you will see that all 5 employee groups have stated that this is absolutely going to improve retention and recruitment. And let me tell you how significant these letters are. We have 5 employee groups: Criminal Order Police, Teamsters, Latin American Law Enforcement Association, Black Sheriff Detective Association, Denver Sheriff's Latino Organization. To get them all to agree on anything is significant. And I know that because I meet with all of them, I hear from all of them. Sometimes they disagree and they battle the way that you would expect employee groups to battle in an organization. But when this directive was issued, they absolutely lauded it. I heard from the president of the FOP last night about it again, saying that staff are still over the moon about it. And so the evidence that I take is the fact that all 5 of our employee groups say that this is going to improve recruitment and retention.
But you do not have current, either from others' experience or our own experience yet, any evidence that shows that it hasn't, will it be in fact resulting in better recruitment?
I would say a year from now, we'll see how retention happens. I think we're doing very well with recruitment. I think with retention, we'll see how things are in about a year. And since the directive was only issued a little less than 2 months ago, I don't think we have enough time to say that there's any data to demonstrate that just yet. But I think this is absolutely evidence that our staff, who are often our greatest recruiters, believe that it is. And those employee groups, they say this is a fantastic move in the right direction. Some of them said that this is the best thing that's happened in discipline in 20 years. You're welcome to speak with the presidents of those organizations I would share their contact information with all of you if you would like to talk to them
That would
personally.
be very helpful.
Okay,
That would be very helpful.
okay.
Any questions? I guess, number 6, you're probably going to, this is probably where number 6 comes in, sharing any recent employee engagement survey results or other measures of workforce morale, including voluntary attrition rates. What, we just talked about it earlier about exit interviews, but do you do for current employees? Do you do engagement surveys?
We haven't done one in over 3 years, but I talked to the director of OHR, Kathy Nesbitt. The city is in the process of creating the survey that they send out to all city employees, which we participate in. When those results come back, we are happy to share them with the board.
Why have you not done it in 3 years?
We did one in 2023. We just haven't done an engagement survey.
Is that something that was I know that COVID affected a lot of things, but is this something that the city typically does each year? Or is it something that is random, or is there a set cycle?
It's a set cycle done by the city.
At what intervals?
At this point, I would say that it's probably 3 years. I'm not sure. I would defer to OHR on that cadence for the survey.
Okay, okay. All right. Number 7, what analysis or evidence supports the department's conclusion that the recent disciplinary process changes will strengthen public trust?
I think it's the same response that I have. We haven't had enough time. But what I'll tell you is the public trust comes from the relationships that I've built and that Director Gardner has built with the folks who support us. We met with the Greater Metro Denver Ministerial Alliance a couple of weeks ago. And I would encourage you to speak with them. Yesterday, we went to another community meeting. We're willing to go to any community meeting to talk about this, but I would say the communities that have supported us and have always supported us know where our hearts are when it comes to this work, and we would love to get feedback from them. I worked with Servicios de la Raza. I've been to Cafecita. I've been to the NAACP. I've been to the Israeli American Council. I can tell you that there is a lot of support for the Denver Sheriff Department in the broader community. I know there are some groups who have a different opinion about this directive and who have a different opinion about my leadership of the Sheriff's Department or just the Sheriff's Department in general. I think that comes with being in a position like this or being a law enforcement agency. But I can tell you that the vast majority of the people that we talk to absolutely support the work that we do. I believe that they would support this change, and we're looking forward to sharing this information with them and look forward to having them analyze what we've done in the coming months and years to see what they think as well.
Well, we just recently were submitting our letter that was signed on by 6 other organizations who represent a very broad group of the community. They're in disagreement with your viewpoint that they would welcome this. So I think there is enough disagreement on both our side to warrant having a look at what exactly is the community's perspective on this. I think public trust is one that is very fragile and has to be built continuously. And when things such as we get told, we don't get consulted, but we get told that there's now a change in how discipline is going to happen, and there wasn't the appropriate process followed as required by law, then that trust starts to fade, or worse yet, is broken. And I know this is strong, but I think it's important. The trust has been broken, and we have to rebuild. And your steps now following our discussion today are going to indicate to us whether or not there is that commitment to rebuild, or whether we're in that downward spiral that we've seen ourselves in the last year and a half, or almost 2 years. So I would urge the Department of Safety to really hear us today, that we're willing to work towards that rebuilding of the trust. But if we see the same pattern, then it's going to be that we've drawn the line in the sand, and which is why the resistance is so high.
Madam Chair, I certainly respect your opinion. I hear you. I do agree, trust has been broken, and we have to figure out how to move forward together. You have my commitment, you have our commitment that we're going to be at the table, that we're going to be active, willing participants and partners that will follow the ordinance, and we'll do that together. I think we have the same goal. We want to make sure when it comes to the Denver Sheriff's Department that in our jails, people go home better than how they came to us.
Correct.
We take that absolutely seriously. I believe every single member of our department will tell you, in big bold letters in the threshold at the DDC, you see the dual mindset where it says we lead with our humanity. That is not just a phrase or a philosophy, that is the culture that we've built. And so as the leader of the agency, and the person responsible for complying with the ordinance and working with you all, you have my complete commitment. I'm glad we have a new day. I look forward to working with you, the rest of the board, and the monitor as we move forward.
So I would say that if there is that commitment to work with us, we need a pause on the directive until we can work through the infrastructure that needs to be put together to have the Office of Independent Monitor fully working with you on this new change that has been made. We need that time because otherwise confusion and chaos is what's occurring. And that, again, is not behooving your department nor our work.
I appreciate you.
Can I just add something?
Sure.
Sure. We do believe that we are following the ordinance. I'm sure Drew will provide more clarity. So I think that's where the disagreement is coming in. We always ensure that we follow the ordinance. So we just have to sort of get to a place where we both have a full understanding, the same understanding of the ordinance. I think that will clear up a lot as well. Sorry, Sheriff.
That's okay. I was going to say, Madam Chair, I certainly respect your opinion. I think there may be times where we have to agree to disagree. And I don't believe that rescinding the ordinance would be.
I didn't ask for rescission.
Oh,
I was asking for a pause.
okay.
I'm asking for a pause to allow both sides to get on the same level for Office of Independent Monitor to effectively monitor these complaints. We need to have the infrastructure created and ensured. We right now do not have that.
Okay. Well,
So we need to be able to do that in order for your goal to be achieved.
I appreciate that, Madam Chair. I think I would have the same response on the pausing because we have already put processes into place, trained our staff and the like. And so don't believe that there will be a pause of the ordinance, but we look forward to working through this.
So see, that is where the perception that you're trying to bypass the OIM happens. Because without that pause, we now are on the unfortunate situation of trying to deal with what has been created without consultation, without their input. And it's the same with any employee that has a directive issued with them. And then they say, well, how am I supposed to do this when you never consulted with me on how we were going to implement it? And so we're at odds now, and we continue to be at odds because we do not have the full capability of the OIM and your side of it as well. So I'm sorry, we're still in that trust building phase. And so we've got to hear more agreement on your side to give us that opportunity.
Okay, I hear you, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right, well, that's where we leave it. Other questions?
The departments have recently said there's a new understanding of the ordinance. You were there when it was being drafted, so I think everyone on the board is a bit curious as to how we're starting to interpret that very differently in the past 18 months. And the behavior of the departments is very different as a response to that in the past 18 months. So, I've asked repeatedly on our board meetings for some sort of written articulation of the department's understanding of the ordinance. But as far as I think the board's perspective is like, there's no change here. And so how we've gotten from required participation by the monitor's office to, optional collaboration after the fact is more than curious, and would love and will ask again for some sort of written articulation of why we think the ordinance is unclear on this. I think that would benefit everyone for us to be talking about facts together. The last thing I'll say, which has been unsaid, is that the challenge in the directive is that the monitor's office does not have access to Workday and so cannot effectively monitor the program in its new form. And so you say after 3 shots, somebody gets referred, but there's no way to confirm that. And so similar to other disciplinary processes in your facilities that we've fought for increasing transparency around, like health violations, for example, when things go into a vacuum, it's very hard to tell if they are improving, getting worse, or changing at all. And we have an infrastructure in place such that the monitor's office can do that confirmation. But with things going into Workday, it's not a system they have access to. And so there's literally no way for us to tell that you're doing what you say you're doing in this. And we just have to sort of take your word for it, which is why oversight was created in the first place, is that that's not an effective way of ensuring accountability.
Well, thank you, Julia. I appreciate you sharing that. On your first point, I would say any interpretation of the ordinance has to be done by the city attorney's office.
That's what I've been asking for.
Yeah.
I'm asking for your
Yeah,
attorneys
and
to
we're
provide
waiting for
an
that.
interpretation to our
And I
attorneys.
think we reconvene after that. I think that will bring us a lot of clarity and understanding and on the same page. After we work it out.
I hope so.
But in the meantime, you are proceeding forward. If there is an issue of clarity, stop. Put a pause on the directive until that issue is resolved. And that's what we're asking.
That is,
We appreciate your perspective. I would defer to the director.
I understand. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and close this part of our meeting then, and we really appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to our next conversation.
Me too.
And thank you to the department safety staff who attended.
Thank you, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you. And participants, we are going to be entering the executive session now. Sure. And so we are adjourning the public meeting for the for the Citizens Oversight Board, and move to executive session for the purpose of discussing confidential information about internal investigations and other materials subject to the deliberative process privilege. So thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Great, are we now officially in executive session?
We are.
Like you never.
They are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is there a time on your executive session? There is.
It's 11:30.
But how long are you going?